Question number 8. Law of diminishing marginal utility. Some restaurants offer all-you-can-eat meals. How was this practice related to diminishing marginal utility? What restrictions must the restaurant impose to make on the customer to make a profit? Answers may vary. Third tutor says this practice is related to diminishing marginal utility. A rational person will consume only to the point where he receives a positive marginal utility, after which consuming more will only reduce the total utility. Thus, the restaurant uses the fact that at the end of the day, people will stop consuming, and thus they set a price above the average level of consumption, and that's how they make their profits. So, first things first is we know that a rational individual consumes only to a point where he or she receives a positive marginal utility. And based on this definition, if you're like me and you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, you are not a rational individual. But that's the definition of a rational individual in terms of consumption. And restaurants, they must have done some sort of calculation, but they set the price above the average consumption level, and that's how they make a profit, which is a very smart tactic when looking at restaurants. And that's why most restaurants, not most, but some restaurants offer all you can eat buffets, is because they've done enough research to know what the price is for the average consumption level, and they set the price for an all-you-can-eat buffet slightly or a little bit more above that average consumption level, and that's where they make their profits. So the restriction that they impose, it's not really a restriction, but to make a profit, they set the price above the average consumption level. We agree with that. And the second question says marginal utility. Is it possible for marginal utility to be negative while the total utility be positive? If yes, under what circumstances is it possible? Our tutor says yes, it is possible in common. For example, for the utility ux equals x minus x squared, let's just write that down. Within x equals 1, so 0.5 and 1, marginal utility is negative, but utility is positive. That, I'm not sure I'm going to do that calculation, but let's see it. 0.5 minus 0.5 squared equals my trusty calculator over here. Our utility here is 0.25, and u of x again, if x was equal to 1, it would be 1 minus 1 squared equals 1 minus 1, which is equal to 0. It's not negative, but the marginal utility actually is negative, and that's because it's just 0.5 minus 1 is the marginal utility equals negative 0.5, sorry. So this is a good example. Another way of looking at it is also just thinking that as marginal utility is negative, it doesn't mean total utility is negative. It just means total utility is decreased. So if marginal utility is negative, total utility has decreased. So it could still remain a positive number. Your utility could have been 60 and now it's decreased to 52. Your marginal utility is -8 there. Your marginal utility is negative, but your total utility is decreasing. Now, once marginal utility starts getting to the negative, should you really be producing or consuming anymore? You probably shouldn't be, because that's decreasing your total utility, but it is possible for marginal utility to be negative and total utility to be positive. And like our tutor says here, it's actually not that rare. It's pretty common. So this is correct. Great explanation.